Greetings, guys. It's your boy BlastphamousHD coming at you from the comfortability of being in my drawers. Today, we are here to scare the living crap out of ourselves. Now, a lot of you guys have been asking me to watch creepypastas. And so, we're here with literally the greatest creepypasta storyteller. If you guys want to watch the original videos, I'm gonna leave a link in the description down below. It leads to this playlist.
I made a bot to read the top 100 stories on our No Sleep and then forced it to write its own. And this is what happened. I was a library experimentation. It all started when I was boozed and discussing accounts cases with Jack. "Let's call Olivia," he grumbled. Olivia was a co-worker and he was riding her. The clown licked me and watched as we went away. "What is that?" he said, glancing at it. "Oh God, that's my grandson," I explained. Blood exploded from somewhere specific. With a smile and a few flashlights, I tried to tell him about the two crazy guys upstairs. I began investigating outside, but Olivia morphed towards me, and before I could speak, Dr. Waffles grabbed my face and began to unravel it. "Come on," I said. "That was definitely not cool." I turned towards the floor as I thought about the weather, and then screeched. On the floor was a library. "This seems completely scientific," he said, gesturing towards it. He smiled brightly and then flicked my heart monitor. This woman saw my grandson and screamed. Olivia wept by the walls and she died with a look of nauseating desperation on her feet. 50,000 small wooden children appeared in the kitchen. What is happening?
You sure you just ain't on drugs? Cause like, that's a lot of imagination, bruh.
Emily asked. Emily was my neighbor and she had come from the ceiling. "I don't really have a life," I replied. She got pregnant and then looked around the room. "I think it's an illustration of a gruesome scene in Alabama." In the middle of the night, I was surprised to find that our local radio station was still up and running. They were saying that everyone with a pig was gonna hurt very badly because the pigs were floating outside with a bioluminescent glow. I looked out the garage door and there were many megawatts of corpse pigs screaming epic threats at me. And the next thing I could see was a lot of sleepless ghost therapists involved in a car accident. This wasn't fine. I began to sprint toward the smell of rotting pumpkin when the clown prodded my ear and suddenly dropped his cigarette. "Why are you using my radio?" he grumbled. I love you," I said. There was nothing more sentimental to do. Something absurdly troubling squeezed by our 17,006 children, and I screamed.
I bet. Shit, 17,000 children, man. Can you imagine the child support payments? Damn. This nigga paying more child support than Tyrese. Chris Brown.
43 months later, I was halfway to the library when a large sycamore tree with bad sweaty nostrils shut off my path. "I'm here to talk," the voice choked. "Yeah? How much for?" I demanded. "I suppose it would take some years," the tree said. I didn't want to talk for that long, so I dove right in the door and entered a room. Eventually I could recognize it was a library. But there was no escape. Several tentacle tongues smashed towards me in a mass. I tried to protest and tumble backwards, but there was nothing more I could do. The police arrived later and said something along the lines of, "What is happening?" Fearful and secretly enjoying it, I tried to shout to the library, but the library dismissed me. Experiencing death, I eventually died. How do you kill a monster? Ben, what are you doing in there? I glanced up at the door briefly where my wife stood on the other side.
I'll just be another minute.
There was no point answering her question. She knew what I was doing, I'm sure. And she didn't like it. But she just didn't understand. Because she wanted me to move on. My eyes then slid back down to my phone where they stayed glued to the screen for another 4 minutes. I'd scoured the internet for months looking for the rest of the trial, but all I could find was a 6-minute segment that had been televised by a current affair. I'd seen the video so many times and I knew every detail of every second. And yet still I watched. Because I still needed an answer. The camera was currently focused on the jury. They were all leaning forward and concentrating on the testimony of the forensic expert. The camera then slid over to the witness stand where Dr. Fellmore talked about the decomposition of Andrew's body and the state it had been in when a dog walker had discovered it the previous May. Fellmore then walked over to the overhead projector, tapped a stack of slides on the table to straighten them, and then peeled off the top and placed it onto the projector. A graphic photo of Andrew's naked body appeared on the screen and the entire courtroom gasped. A current affair had blurred out the photos, but I remembered what was on them. And they were right to be horrified. Hearing an expert drone in a monotone manner about the graphic abuse of a 5-year-old was much different than seeing its effects firsthand. The doctor explained the slides without emotion, pointing out the countless abrasions, bruises, and open fractures. He spoke about the ultimate manner of death, strangulation, and showed the court how the handprints on Andrew's neck matched perfectly with the defendant's. Then he turned the projector off and began to speak about the presumed time of death. The camera then pulled back at this point to show my family, just quietly crying in their seats. And then finally, it panned over to the defendant's table. The boy sitting beside his lawyer looked downright bored. He flipped a pencil back and forth between his fingers and sighed loudly every few seconds. This was the monster I wanted to kill. He seemed to feel the camera was on him now because he suddenly turned, looked straight at the camera and just gave this smug, intelligent little smile, as if he wasn't afraid of the consequences, as if he believed it had all been worth it. Well, in the end, he was right. The boy had been sentenced to be incarcerated until his majority and then another 7 years after that. But it was nothing. It was less than nothing. I looked over at the straight razor I had begged my wife to get me for my birthday. How do you kill a monster? This was the answer. It would be so easy. But could I bring myself to do it? My little brother deserved vengeance, even if it came 16 years later. Andrew had suffered horrors no human should endure. Days of it. I looked back down at the tiny screen and watched the last few seconds of the video. The boy had suddenly sat up in rapt attention as some of the makeshift torture devices he created were brought out and placed upon a table near the jury. My family was escorted from the courtroom, and a current affair had cut the video off there. But it didn't matter. I remember what happened next. The detective had held up each one of the devices for the jury to examine, and I had rocked back and forth in my seat, giddy with pride at my creations.
Ben, are you coming to bed?
But I was contemplating a much more important question. The only one that mattered. In truth, I knew how to kill a monster. I glanced over at the sharp blade on the counter. That part was easy. But the problem was a bit more complex than that. Because how do you kill a monster when it's inside of you?
I did not see that shit coming. That's crazy. So dude was the person who killed his own little brother. Did anybody see that coming? I did not see that shit coming, yo. I just didn't. I did not see that shit coming. But yo, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys want to watch the original videos, the links in the description down below is gonna lead to Creepypasta's channel, And as always, it's your boy BlastphamousHD. Twist 'em.